All right. What's up, everybody? Um, we talked a while ago about, you know, basically we just always do updates on the bot and whatnot. And we've got our opinions too. We read news articles and we stay up on things and we have our own discussions. And we thought, might as well put our own opinion out there. We have our channel, we have our voice. So thought we'd try our hand at just maybe just some normal discussion about current events and certain articles that pique our interest and kind of maybe spark a discussion amongst our own community too. Um, so anyway, that's kind of our attempt at it. If you hear some noise in the background, that's just my water softener. It's going on and off, but it's quiet for now, so I think we're good. Uh, the guy to my side over here is Jason, lead developer for Acuitas software. So yeah, pretty much it.
Yeah,
I don't know, Jason. What do you have on the table? What do you want to talk about?
yeah. Let me. I'll share a couple of things that I dug up. Yeah, like Jared said, I think we talk all the time about stuff. Let's see. Application window. There we go. Yeah. I mean, I just figured too, like, we talked about doing blog posts and stuff, and I just figured, like, man, it's about 100 times easier just to talk about these things instead of,
That's a lot of work typing. Yeah.
yeah. So. I did like a 3,000 word post last week on some of these things that I saw Jameson Lopp tweeting about. So I was like, ah, cool. Somebody already condensed it down basically for something we can talk about. But yeah, it's like, you know, seeing Bitcoin not as what it is, but what you are. And this is totally just kind of grabbed me. And I was just like, oh God, because, the whole thing that sort of triggered this big thing that I was going to write a response to and then, post it up for us was like how environmentalists are just like, they hate Bitcoin. It's like this one website called Tree Hugger had, it was quoted on CCN and like, that was like pushed around where it was like some woman was saying that, she wants it to go to zero, and then she just quoted this other professor, I guess, out of Santa Clara University or somewhere around there, like that went made the rounds a couple weeks ago, where he was talking about how it could go to zero and everything. And, it's funny because like you see all these people just clamoring, for their whole, like viewpoint. And, we have a viewpoint too, obviously. It's like, um, we're kind of, I did at least this year, switched my life over to, instead of, making money on uh, building questionable products for startups in San Francisco, like I've been doing for a long time. I'm actually building things for myself and for people to really use, and it's all centered around crypto and the whole notion of us. I don't know, us building things to get us out of this mess that we're in, right? And so, a lot of these people just like to tear everything down. And I feel like, okay, at least, in this market or area of development, it's like I'm actually building things, I'm not just a, hollow opinion, right? Um, so yeah, environmentalists, the SJWs, all these things, right? And we got the economist guys that Rubini, Dr. Doom, predicting all this bad stuff. Yet he's totally in the back pocket of all these banks and everything, and it's just like it kind of blows you away. You're just like, wow, man, all these people get press, and it's just like I hope people just are kind of like, okay, that's what that person said, and they just sort of whatever. Um, you know, that Rubini guy, especially, because it's just like, I mean, he gets invited in front of Congress to, say how bad, crypto is. And yet, he's on the payroll of all these banks and all these pro, like banking lobbies and everything. So,
Well,
um,
that's a valid point because you figure a lot of the voices you hear,
yeah,
they're not only just people entrenched. They're typically the older you are. I don't mean to age discriminate, right? But I'm just saying, look, the older you get, the more set you are in your ways. When I'm 70, I'm probably going to be pretty set in my ways, right?
sure.
Like, and so I get it. There's a bias there. And when something new comes along, it's very hard to fully accept that this is something new that could be revolutionary. You know, I don't want to talk about like price. Like price isn't what I'm talking about. It's like the technology itself, this fact that the double spend problem was solved, right? Digital money is nothing new. This is not a new concept, right? But the fact that it came out, you know, 2008, right, or 2009, right after the 2008 crisis, which we all sat through. The fact that in the blockchain itself, you know, is a message about banking and about what problem this guy or woman or group of people was trying to solve, you know, and that's really what it's about. And it's not about buying coffee. It's about control of your own finance. Now, if I look at this tweet, I'm like, okay, you know, SJWC, gender and wealth inequality. Okay, part of that, I mean, there is a, you know, a valid argument that maybe there's a bunch of Bitcoin in the hands of very few people. Is that a problem? Is it their fault? You know, do we socially try to like
of course it is, right?
redistribute that wealth? You know, like
you're not allowed to be wealthy.
Right. So I don't see that as a problem unless it's going to get to the point where, you know, it's just not usable or whatever. You know.
Yeah, but the thing with that though, too, is like, you know, a lot of these places around the world, you can't even get bank accounts. You know, it's like they probably have access to a mobile phone or some kind of device, and they don't have, you know, maybe a bank account or something. It's like, you know, once you have access to that, it's like, easily get access to probably some kind of crypto or something.
It's not even that. You may live in a country where your own money isn't trustworthy.
Well, yeah, Jesus.
I mean,
totally.
The U.S. dollar, right? I was just telling you before we started this, like the fact that we couldn't have a fiat conversation 10 years ago. You use that word and they'd go, what are you talking about? Is it a car? You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, my brother is in finance, right? Like that's what he does. And we had fights over Thanksgiving dinner about, you know, the Federal Reserve, fiat currency, you know, what a dollar was, who made it. You know, at the time, Ron Paul was running, you know, and it was just these all-out brawls. And then today, I hate to use the word, but he's capitulated, right? Today, he's like, dude, you're right. You know, like, I get it now. You know, it doesn't, you know, he's still in finance. Right?
Yeah.
But I think he has a better understanding of, like, exactly, like, because nobody ever stops to think, like, where does the dollar come from? Like, it's just money, you know? It's money. You use it, right? Like, well, now we can have that conversation. So if nothing else, you know, the crypto conversation has changed that. And people have become, I don't want to say the average Joe, but a lot of people are much more aware of what this paper in your wallet means. And I got that when I was a kid. Like, I'll tell you a funny story. So when I was a kid, I was, me and my buddy used to try to cheat the arcades, right? And I got the bright idea that you know, why do we have to use a quarter? You know, I would sit there and I would pound nickels out with a hammer and get them flat so that you could use them as a quarter, right? But even then I was thinking about the fact of what this metal was and why it was worth something. And then I'd compare that to this piece of paper in my wallet, you know? And I'd be like, well, how come, like, I kind of understood the metal. And even then I think I understood that pennies weren't, you know, all copper, and that quarters only had a small cladding. You know, they weren't really probably worth a quarter even if you try to trade them for metal. But it really baffled my mind about the piece of paper, because I was like, okay, so like what is this thing? And of course, you know, later on you read about silver certificates, and like you used to be able to trade them in for silver, and you know, obviously after the gold standard, that doesn't happen anymore. It's now backed by the, you know, full faith and credit of the United States of America, right? And I think the real key there is that, you know, that dollar is legal tender for all debts, public and private. So it's like, if you owe me money and you offer me that dollar and I go, I don't want that dollar, I want Bitcoin, you can go, well, I've offered you legal tender and you refused it. So there is no more debt, right? You can discharge it. So in a way, it's like the legal system is really what floats the value of this stuff. And I think, again, it's an awareness issue. And when you talk about, you know, there's these people that see different things, you know, there's arguments I can make about proof of stake versus proof of work, you know, and that's probably a whole conversation in and of itself, right? But there's different ways to evaluate what a, you know, how to build what a crypto is. You know, it doesn't have to be proof of work. Proof of work it's going to be okay. The way I understand it, it kind of levels back out. Look, it's leveling out now. Miners are shutting off because the price isn't good, right? They
Yeah,
can't.
it adjusts.
It adjusts.
It's difficult to adjust.
So it's not like we're, destroying the planet for this fake thing. You're,
Yeah, I think the thing is though, these people, it's like I know how that, I feel like I live in the middle of all this stuff, and it's just like they're looking for an enemy in anything.
Hey,
So
do you not want to be on camera or something? You still have your picture. We're looking at a tweet this whole time.
no, it's fine. No, because I have another one after
Ah,
this.
well
So
then go for it.
so yeah, this was
It's just me.
So Lob's got some cool stuff. He's on a decent amount of podcasts I've listened to. So he seems like he's been pretty sane about a lot of stuff. So yeah, I don't disagree with all these things. This was an interesting one, and I had to do this one because we actually did this earlier this year. What was it? I sent Bitcoin to a Litecoin address by mistake.
That's right. I totally forgot about that.
And it was something like $40,000 worth. And I just remember
terrible,
like, holy shit. How do we just lose $40,000 in under a second? But the good news is, like, if you ever do that, it can totally be reversed.
It can be reversed.
And we did it.
Furious.
We reclaimed it.
It was furious Googling, right?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
the fuck?
I mean, I don't remember how to do it off the top of my head, but it was, but yeah, we were able to find the instructions somewhere. Somebody talked about it, and yeah, I ended up reversing, or no, I ended up, what did we do? We ended up like, I forget, you do something with the wallet file with like a Litecoin wallet. We're using Electrum, for all of our wallet stuff.
Right.
And we ended up like, you got to take out, like, you got to look in the file, you take part of the key, and you do a bunch of stuff, and then it pops up, and you can send it back to the Bitcoin address. So luckily you did that. But I saw this, and it was just, I kind of cracked up a little bit.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, they're saying it's not recoverable, so they just don't want to support it. Apparently. Well, of course,
yeah, right.
we also don't know about their back end structure, and who knows? Maybe they can't do it the way we did it, right? But it sounds awful lot like. How much money was involved in that one? $2,500. Oh, somebody on Twitter helped them?
Yeah, see that? Yeah, they recovered it. So
that's
yeah,
trash.
but I think that's the thing, right? It's because Litecoin was created off. Did he create it straight off Bitcoin, or he forked it off Bitcoin,
I think it's I don't know if it's a fork. I think it's the same code base. I think.
Yeah, it's
same.
I forget. Yeah, it's
the same algo and all that.
Whatever.
I was floored that you were able to figure that out. Like I was like, dude, it's gone. Like it's gone.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, no way.
Yeah. That's
Yeah, so that was cool. That was funny, and I just thought I gotta show this one and talk about it. But yeah, I mean, if anybody watches and they've known somebody, or
it is possible. That's a fact. And don't do it. Double check your stuff. There was another. When I read an article, I think it was Rolling.
Don't delete anything either.
I think it was Rolling. Yeah, don't delete it. Yeah, I think it was Rolling Stone. I read, and they were talking about the. It was the big auction the guy bought. I think it was like, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin. It was a sheriff's auction or something, right?
Oh, the Tim Draper one.
Maybe it was Tim Draper. Yeah, Tim Draper's son was involved. Yeah. So like, and they were like, in the article they were like, oh man, it was white knuckle time as they wrote down the address. Listen though, they wrote down the address and they were like repeated it several times, and you know what they did? They sent the whole fucking transaction all at once. I was like, dude, I never do that. Like I'm sending stuff to my own. I'm like, send a tiny amount, verify it, make sure it got there, confirm. Okay, cool. Now I copy that address and send the rest. I'm like, there's no way in hell I'd send tens of millions or however much it was, but a lot, all at once. Well, it's gone. What if you did mess up? Like I don't know. And it was a while ago, so maybe nobody thought.
Well, that's just how I think a lot of those people think like that, though, right? It's like they just think like, okay, and we were doing that stuff too, But yeah, it makes sense, obviously, that if those are the rules, it's like crack off a little bit and just send that, test it.
Yeah,
it's all good.
Dude, I'm anal about that. I'm like I said, I could be sending $100. Well, no, maybe not 100, but if it's a larger amount for me that I'm uncomfortable, I make sure that it's verified. So the fact they did that with a huge chunk, I was just like, I don't know if if the author was just like, trying to make it seem more dramatic or whatever, but if that's the way they did it, that's insane to me. But anyway,
Yeah, so it's funny because that feeds right in basically to the next thing, which is I found this interesting.
nice. Yes, the stackers.
Yeah, so all these people that think like this is going to collapse, which hey, could. It's I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it's like look at what is going on in the real world, and it's like these people are stacking it, because I think everybody has a good sense that it's like it's going to bounce back. I mean, this technology, the thing is, all the people that are, in holding, that are part of investment, like startup, VCs, like all that stuff, right? It's like they've, and I think the same way too. It's like, this is why I just was like, I'm not building traditional applications anymore. I've been through that whole thing enough where it's like, I've already seen these things play out. I've been in this movie already like twice from, the .com, all the way through like Web 2, all the way through mobile. It's like I've been through all those points. I've seen how the development goes. I've seen, the technologies. I've used all those technologies and everything. And, it's like you get like, you can get pretty good at like, identifying paradigms and stuff. And so, it's like, it's funny because like I remember in 2013 like or 2012 mining a little bit, and then I was just thinking like, who the hell is going to use this stuff though? It's like you can't buy anything with Bitcoin. There's a couple of things you could buy, and then it was like I worked with a buddy like a year later, and I forget what it was in like 2013. If it was like, is that what it spiked up like $300 or $400 or something like that? But he's like, I'm doing all this mining stuff and everything, and I'm like, why, dude? Why? What's the big deal, right? And I think he was into Litecoin a lot and everything, but it wasn't until like the DAO. I think the DAO is kind of what really I was just like, whoa, wait a minute, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know what I mean? Because you can kind of see with like Bitcoin, it's like okay, it's a currency, right? Okay, unless you have financial background, which I didn't have finance background, right? So it's like I've worked at a bank before, but it's not like like I understand how to build systems and move all this money around and see like how those things work, right? It's like I did work at a bank for a little while and saw this stuff, and I remember telling my good friend, I was like, he was basically teaching me, all the banking stuff, and we are building this bond system, and he would teach me all this stuff, and I just remember asking him once, I'm like, so this is basically like legalized gambling, right? That's what all of this financial stuff seems like. It's not
Option,
far from
options, yes.
right.
all those
Yeah, yeah,
futures contracts. That's exactly what it is. It's legalized
yeah.
gambling.
Totally. So it was just like,
yeah.
so it's like I didn't have that background. It's like so Bitcoin. I was still just like I don't know what I would use it for. Like what a lot of people, right? But it's like once the DAO, like Ethereum and everything came out, it's like you can program it, and I know you can program Bitcoin too. It's just it's a lot harder, and I think people
Right.
just don't do it much. But I was like, okay. And then, it's like, 2017 starts hitting, with like a lot more of the ICOs and then the botting, that's how we met with all the botting and everything. And it was just like, yeah, I mean, like I'm done with like doing stupid mobile apps, for stupid parking 20 somethings that want to, park their car instead of whatever. No, it's not against 20 somethings, but
Yeah. Don't age
it's just,
discriminate, Jason. What are you
yeah,
doing?
yeah, totally, totally. But you know what I mean? It's just kind of like, yeah, so I don't know. I just don't feel like it's gonna happen. I mean, we'll definitely see, like, I mean, you just got to look back through the history of Bitcoin. We'll see our peaks and valleys and stuff like that. But, it's like, a lot of these guys, well, this is like the .com, yeah, kind of, I could see that, I could see that happening. And so I don't know. I just had to pull this one up because it's like this is what I really think is going on. It's like people are grabbing this stuff as it's cheap, and we can see here that the 53rd largest address has been adding 250 Bitcoin a day. So that's pretty nice. I would love to be doing that a
I'd say
day.
he's stacking.
Yeah. So, and I think my brother too found like he was looking at some addresses or something, and it's like I think we saw in the news too, like recently, like some big player dumped like a ton of what was it, a ton of Bcash or something. It was just like people are moving around, big numbers. recently. So it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know if that means everybody's getting positioned for backed or what, or just 2019 in general, or, there's end of the year, like tax things, I guess, or whatever too. So, um,
Well, you figure really at the end of the year, I was always worried about your tax loss selling, but I don't know how the rules work with non-securities, um, because it's not classified as such. So, but
yeah,
now
yeah,
sometimes people might liquidate other assets to make good on other books. If you had an investment that was still okay, let's say you bought Bitcoin when it was still 1,000, and at 3 or 4,000, it's still looking pretty sweet. If your other stuff is not, maybe you'll sell some and make good or whatever. But obviously, there's people that still see value. Um, you know, I'm under no illusions, dude. Like, look, I've been wrong plenty of times in my life. So if I'm wrong again, it's just add to the list. But I really feel like this is something just different, and I could go pull up the list of the quotes of everybody else who's predicted things that they were wrong. The guy who says that railroads are a fad. Horses are where it's at. Who uses airplanes in war, right? That's a bunch of crap. you know, like it happens over and over and over again. It's just this. Here's just one fundamental thing that's been a monopoly for so long that nobody can really fathom it not being a monopoly anymore. And all it really takes is the realization that there could be something else. Money's a belief system.
yeah,
If you and I believe that this pencil is worth something, we can trade with it. I can break it up into pieces and go, well, this used to be worth 100. You have to value against something else, but you know what I'm saying. If we can agree on anything as a store of value, it's just
yeah,
under penalty of law. As U.S. citizens, we're forced to accept one thing.
right.
And I think that it may take a while, dude. It may take 10 years. Maybe it's our lifetime. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Hopefully sooner. But the younger generation might grow up, and Bitcoin won't be a thing that was invented. It's just a thing that always was. My 11-year-old will grow up, and he'll be like, oh, that dad. This thing that Dad talked about when he was a kid. It's still around. It's still being used, and he's not going to think that's foreign anymore. He's going to see that as a peer. I can get gold, I can get Bitcoin, I can get dollars, right?
Yeah,
Nobody invests in dollars. Why? Because there's inflation. The game is to make invest into something that grows faster than your inflation rate. Otherwise, you're being robbed, right? Like, if your inflation rate's 2% and you put that money under your mattress, you're being robbed of 2% of value year over year over year.
right.
It's the savings rate, right? So, so here's this thing that's like not controlled by anybody, and the entire globe has decided it's worth something, whether that was through speculation or through whatever. But it's got a very solid use case, and even in 10 years from now, when Bitcoin is seen as the old crotchety old man who's been around forever, the technology's stale or whatever, but it's still like the first. You know what I mean? It's still like the longest chain, the longest one that hasn't been cracked. It's still going to retain that value. We could get into conversations about quantum computing and deriving private keys from public, okay. But when that technology advances to get close to that point, I would imagine there will probably be something of a consensus for it. It's like, hey, homeboy's got a quantum computer. Like, it's real. We should probably think about this.
Yeah, they'll have figured it out, or they'll figure out some protection or something by that point.
It's not like it's immutable unless we want it to be. And that really comes down. And Caitlin Long was a big proponent of this. And when she started talking about it, I was like, sweet, because she has a voice in the Twitterverse, and it was kind of like, look, it's all about holding your keys. If you don't hold the key, you don't own the Bitcoin. Somebody else owns it. They're just holding it for you. They've got it in custody. And so when it comes to decisions of forks and all of that, it comes down to who's running full nodes and who owns the keys. You don't have a voice if your keys and your stuff is sitting on Coinbase or it's sitting wherever. You know,
Which most people aren't going to do, right? It's like that's the other big thing that's preventing, I think a lot of the adoption for a lot of these things, right? It's like, and I know this out of experience definitely because I've worked on, a lot of apps and, user experience is, the big thing that, people have to drive home. And it's just like, if it's not easy for people to use, if it's not easy to like, install an app, figure out how to get a wallet, get the money, from an exchange into your wallet, then it's just going to deter people from using it, and that's the big thing now. And I have a buddy that's, loves Ethereum and everything, and we would talk about this all the time. And, he's super excited about, Ethereum and everything, but, and we work together too, but I was just like, yeah, but I mean, this is cool for us. We know how to use this stuff, but it's like, you're never going to get like your mom or my mom to like, download an app and like get Ethereum onto it. And that's kind of, I think, the big hurdle across the board. It's like Coinbase probably makes it the easiest out of, anybody to, buy Bitcoin. And, it's like, I just think like, man, do people really want to have another like thing on their phone where, especially when it's like money, dealing with money, and then all of a sudden it's, where is it? Where'd it go? Oh, deleted my phone. Lost my keys, whatever, so it's like, I don't know how those things are going to be solved, because they have to be easy, but, it's understandable that people do want to just use, Coinbase for it because they make it easy, right? They solve that problem.
right.
But, we know, of course, like, that's a sketchy thing to do, but I guess as long as you're not parking, a bunch of money off onto it, then, only put on there what you're, willing to lose, right?
Yeah, and that's always been a thing with me. Even when we were doing all the botting before, I was like, dude, I had guys show me how much they have on an exchange. I'm like, you're insane. Like, you
Right.
you have big brass balls because
Right.
I'm not comfortable with that much money on an exchange on foreign soil that I have zero recourse. Like, hey, look, I like trading like anybody else, but I don't trust you that much. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. And to each his own, I guess. Um, but yeah, so yeah, I think we just wanted to talk a little bit about the current stuff. Jason, I threw up behind us that article we talked about before. The mental gymnastics to justify Bitcoin prices, and
Mm.
in that case, it's kind of like, so I read this article, and the guy's kind of got a point, and he's basically saying, look, when prices were high, a lot of people were like, oh, and myself included. I told myself, oh man, people must get it. Finally, here it comes. Here's this revolution. And the reality is, the large majority of that price was probably just speculation. It wasn't, people didn't get it. They just there was this thing they could buy and sell that was going to get them more fiat dollars. And I've always been of the opinion that the paradigm shift happens when you stop thinking, how many dollars can I get for my Bitcoin, and it's how many Bitcoin can I get for my dollar. It's a shift, and because we live in a fiat world, it hasn't happened because I can't go pay all my bills in Bitcoin.
Oh yeah.
I can't
I,
settle my debts. I can't. We are forced to live in this fiat world, which is why you don't see anybody freaking out about Bitcoin. You don't see this, like, the actual outlash and the war that you're going to see from people who do run the system, right? Because they know they've got you by the tight and curlies, dude. You can't pay your taxes in Bitcoin. You have to go get dollars. Like, you know what I mean?
unless you live in Ohio.
Well, state taxes. I'm talking about federal taxes.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Props to Ohio. They're trying, right?
Yeah.
I forget his name now. Anyway, so the point is, during all of this, everybody was like making their own reasons for what Bitcoin is, why it's worth something. And when this guy talks about mental gymnastics, okay, I mean, maybe, but this, look at this guy, right? Hey, Mr. Winkler. There is a difficulty in trying to determine with traditional metrics what a Bitcoin's worth, because there's no PE ratios. There's no, like, it's so new that it's only worth what everybody says it's worth and what it's trading for, right? And as long as there's a free market for it, I'm all about it, right? And I like to hate on all the shorters and the margin guys that are pushing the price down, but to be totally fair, eventually you squeeze all the blood out of that rock. You know, there's nothing left to short. It's not going to zero, guys. It's going to go down to the point where everybody's just said, you know what, all the sellers are gone. And what's going to happen is those same leverage guys will go, well, time to start going the other direction, and it's going to get overinflated again. And by the nature of markets, that is a sine wave that gets bigger. It doesn't get smaller. Usually, it will amplify, and that's why the people are talking about the bigger upswings. It's not going to be. I don't think it's going to be. BACT comes out, and there's some magic piece of news, some ETF that just all of a sudden everybody goes, "Holy shit, let's buy!" And it doesn't work that way. It's not some switch that's going to happen. What's going to happen is your natural market mechanics, and the switch in everybody's head going, okay, bottom has been reached, and it's a psychological thing. You can chart it all you want, dude. You're going to know it in hindsight. You're going to know it when price keeps going up, and you're like, oh, I guess that was the bottom. You know what I mean? So, try not to obsess with price, dude. If you believe in the technology and you believe that Bitcoin has a potential to store value outside of your own governmental system, then you should be holding it. You should have some, whether it's a fraction or a whole or whatever. I had conversations with my brother and his friend. Like, they didn't understand that you could buy a part of a Bitcoin.
Oh, yeah.
It was like, blew my mind. I'm like, dude, you don't need to buy a whole. It's too expensive. I can't buy one. I was like, so don't buy one.
Yeah, my sister and my mom are the same thing, and I was like, yeah, you buy pieces of it. You can spend, $25 and buy some of it.
It's division. Yeah, you can divide it to 8 decimal points. I think it's pretty good, right?
Well, I think, so here's the thing, though. I think everybody's interested in price. I would say majority of everybody. I agree with all the long stuff, the hodling and everything too, but I guess I see it as like, I think speculation's healthy. I don't have a problem with speculation, actually. I think that's what you're going to need in order to get the value in to where this thing can be booted up, and then, right? And then it can be really exchanged for useful things, and then not just money, right? And then I think at that point, who knows? It's like, once the value goes from, being locked into fiat currencies and everything, and then it's like you could actually pay your bills and stuff with it, then, who knows where it goes from there, right? But it's not going to zero at that point. It's done, I think. That down trajectory, you're never going to see those, numbers again. And, maybe people talk about like, oh man, we had it at 3,018, and that was the last time we saw that, right? Because it's like,
I do
say the same about $500, $100, $600. Like, do you think you could ever buy a Bitcoin for like $5?
Listen. No I did an article. I did some Bitcoin seminars, right? And I have a couple of funny stories. And so one of them was the Lamborghini I have in my garage. And I would, I talk about my Lambo. I'm Lambo rich, and I would put on the screen, and it's this mountain bike in my shed, next to my mower, right? And it's because I paid 25 Bitcoin for this thing, and it was because at the time Bitcoin was $13, and it was an all-time high, and I was like, here's this magical internet money, and I can actually get something of value. I lived in a bad part of town, and I had left my old bike on the side of my house, and some crackhead came and literally stole the bike like 2:00 in the afternoon. I made a sandwich. This guy came and stole my bike, and I was like, "Oh my!"
That'll happen anytime here.
I was like, "Dude!" So I was so mad, and I was like, "It wasn't a great bike, but it was my bike, dude. I like that one." So my buddy in Canada, you know who you are if you watch this. So my buddy in Canada is like, well, I got a bike, and I got it from this guy who owed me money, and it's actually a nice bike. It was actually worth like $2,000. He goes, I'll tell you what, you send me some Bitcoin, I'll send you a bike. I'm like, fucking deal. So I sent him some Bitcoin. Of course, he only wanted 20 Bitcoin. I was like, let's make this fair. Let me send you 25.
Mm-hmm.
So, and literally, I got this bike in the mail, in a box, from Canada, and I had to put it all together. And,
like almost 70,000.
So, like, at the time, remember with the all-time, so it was worth $250,000. And I'd go out to mow my lawn, and I'm like, I have to look at this bike. I'm like, now the point of this article was, or this seminar was, to talk about what is it too high to buy? Because several times it's gone to this all-time high and then crashed, and and the next one was like $1,000, right? And $1,000 for Bitcoin was fucking ridiculous. Like It was like, oh my god! And of course it went back down, and then it went back up again, and then back down. So trying to bottom call is tough, but we've been through so many of these cycles that, in retrospect, you're like, oh, okay. That was the low. You don't really know when the low or when the high is until you go all the way back. But it's hard to mentally wrap your head around that because, again, at the time, I had watched that price from $6 to $9, just whatever. And when it went to 13, it was like, oh wow,
yeah,
this is kind of cool. And I never did have anything in Mt. Gox or whatever. Like I said before, I didn't trust exchanges. I didn't have my stuff sitting in Mt. Gox. I knew how to run a node at the time and to have a wallet. I don't even think the stuff was encrypted then. Like it was all pretty rudimentary. But I forget where I was even going with that. But point is, like, you were saying about dollars, about speculation and about that driving interest.
Well, right, and the worth and the value of it, right?
Sure. And we've gone from the Bitcoin pizza guy to people losing their drives and now it's is it stable? I don't know. I mean, is this the low point? Are we going to 1,000? I don't know. It doesn't really matter, dude. I feel like at its core, Bitcoin serves a purpose, and we can talk. I know we've been kind of like Bitcoin maximalists here. We haven't talked about other cryptos, but other than like Ethereum. But I'm focusing on that because that is you can look at the market. That drives everything else. When people
it's the base.
It's the base. When you're trying to buy Raven coin or I don't hold Raven coin. I don't know why I brought that one up. But when you're trying to buy one alt and you have to go through, you got to get the Bitcoin, you got to get the alt, and then when you go back to fiat, you got to sell the alt, sell the Bitcoin, right? So you get this amplified.
Well, to be fair, right? It's like you can buy what does Coinbase have? 0x. It's like they have.
They have direct fiat.
Sure, I mean, they have a handful of it now, right? So.
But that's just Coinbase. That's one exchange.
Yeah. Right. There's others out there that make it.
And maybe over time, with enough fiat pairings, maybe we'll see this whole Bitcoin rubber band effect go away. I don't know. I would love to see more decentralized exchanges. I'd love to see liquidity in things that aren't centrally managed. But until investors go, I need that, I want to use that, and I refuse to use anything else, that's probably not going to happen. It's a demand-based business. But so behind me, I have the Bitcoin NVT ratio, which I pulled up, which is an attempt to try to evaluate Bitcoin using any kind of metric other than speculation, right? Other than what people are trading it for. And it kind of makes sense. It's pretty much, I think it's just dividing the fiat value of it by the amount of transactions, trying to say, look, here's how much it gets actually used, right? And that's as close to a PE ratio as you're going to get. There's no company. There's no other way to really determine how valuable it is other than trying to, how much is it being used, right?
There's the rating agencies.
Right. Well, there's Weiss, right? They try. I mean, there's people that are going to try. But again, it's like, okay, what about gold? Could you rate gold by the amount of times gold gets transacted from person to person? Would that be a fair value of gold? Because people usually buy it and they put it in their. If I'm gonna buy gold, I'm not like buying coffee with gold, and I'm putting that shit away and it sits in a safe, So like I don't know that it's fair to really judge Bitcoin by the amount of transactions, if by definition some of us believe that it's a store of value and not a coffee coin, right? Your Lightning Network might be good for that. There's other cryptos that can be, some things are designed for these fast transactions and settling. You know, maybe things need to happen on another layer, and then so maybe Lightning Network is great for Bitcoin because it's going to let you do those quick transactions and then settle back at a later point. And that brings me into the liquid sidechain. So like on this chart, it shows where Liquid opened up, and I'm actually really surprised that it had that much of an effect. And so, if you don't know, Liquid is the other side chain that is used to settle transactions between essentially big players, your institutions, your whales, your exchanges, right? So those guys all like to settle here because they don't have to wait, right? You can basically use this side chain to do your transactions and not have to do the 10-minute confirmation or whatever. I think. I mean, right. I could be wrong, but you can absolutely see on the network where, and both of these are like, they say, well, once Liquid was opened, we have to adjust these numbers, and it's been, months. They've never done an adjustment because I don't know that you can. I don't know what you do there, and so that kind of invalidates this whole like notion that we can use that as a way to determine what Bitcoin is. At the end of the day, it's probably pretty simple. It's probably what I'm willing to pay you for a Bitcoin. That's its value. You know what I mean? Which is what free market economics are supposed to be. That's the way that's the way it should work. Now, when you start talking about manipulation and all that stuff, okay, that's a different conversation. But anyway. So
cool.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't know. It's kind of all I got for now.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I think this will be good. It's like I like this format better than trying to write blog posts. We'll still have Jay doing that material and stuff, but I think this format is just something to work on more, and everybody else has their 2 cents they're putting out, so we might as well.
So we get to pretend like people care what we say, right?
Yeah, totally.
That's sweet.
Somebody will.
Right? Give me that one like.
All right, cool.
All right, brother.
We're gonna make dinner.
Yeah, cool. We'll sign off and we'll do it again shortly. All right.
Yep.
All right. Talk to you.
Thanks.
Bye.
See ya.